Hello there, I'm Todd Weller. Thank you for joining today's Lunch and Learn served by the FileMaker team at Cross IT. Before we dig in, remember that you have a chance to win lunch on us if you leave a comment or ask a question during the live stream. Just make sure you have your email address so that we can contact you. During the question and answer portion of last month's Lunch and Learn, I mentioned how I like to use utility scripts when performing common operations in a solution. You responded by saying, "Tell us more." So today I'm going to share some examples of my utility scripts, including ones for printing and email operations. We have a lot to cover today, so let's dive right in. All right, so for today we're going to go ahead and start kind of where we left off last time, which is we're going to be looking at the same data set but looking at different things, and we're going to be talking about what I call utility scripts. Different people probably have different names for what we're going to be looking at, but this is what I like to call them, so that's what we're going to use today. And so what are some of the benefits of a utility script? Well, what that does is it allows chunks of code to be easily reused because it's typically something that you're doing quite often, multiple times throughout a solution. So instead of having to write a new script every time, you're calling this utility script. Any of the troubleshooting that you're doing, it only requires you to look in one area. In the example of printing, you may have a number of scripts that print from different modules in your solution. And if you're having, get a call from a customer or the client or a user that says, "Hey, I can't print, or I'm having trouble printing this," then you have to go find that specific either print setup or print command. But if you're able to consolidate all of those into a single place, it makes your troubleshooting potentially easier. So what becomes a utility script? It's usually, you identify those common tasks or user functions. We already talked about, printing or sending email, saving as a PDF, exporting to Excel. All those kinds of things are on the table. But of course, it could be unique to your use case because we all know the power of FileMaker is that you're able to build custom solutions for specific things. And so what is very common in your application may not be as common for others, so your utility scripts may look differently than what some of the other people are going to be coming up with. So where do we begin? Well, typically the way that I work is to identify the process that I'm going to convert into a utility script is I take a look at what I'm doing, and it's like, wait a minute, haven't I done this before? It's like, what am I constantly writing a script to accomplish multiple times throughout the solution? And I say, okay, it's time to convert that into a utility script that I can use multiple times in this solution, and then hopefully write it in a way that makes it portable, that I'm able to then get it over into the other solutions for my next project. And then also, as you identify the process that you're going to convert, you need to be thinking about, okay, what variations do I need to consider? Again, going back to our print example, you have, am I printing the current record or am I printing the found set? Also in the print setup, is it oriented landscape or portrait? So those are things that you need to do. And then you just start writing the script. But of course, as you do that, just be prepared to modify and adjust as you go. Because I've started several scripts and I'm constantly going back and realizing, oh, I didn't consider this scenario, so now I've got to tweak it, do a little bit more. All right, so let's just go ahead and dive in, and what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and take this idea of printing, and we're going to go ahead and convert that into a utility script. Like I said, here's our data set that we had from last time, where we had this script here. Now if we wanted to generate this summary report, we would just click on it. It would take us over here, would bring up the print dialog. I'm just going to go ahead and save it as a PDF so I don't have to worry about that. Click Save, and then it takes care of that. And now we're back to our demo. So let's go ahead and take a look at that script and get our script workspace open, and you can see that I've gone ahead and I've pulled in some that are complete, but we want to go ahead and build one from scratch so we can kind of dig into this a little bit. And as we talked about, in our print, actually, let's go ahead and take a look at our invoice summary script, because typically, all of the print is pretty easy. Okay, it's just down here where we've got our print setup and then our print dialog. And on the surface, it looks like, well, that's only 2 lines. Why do I want to make this complex script? Well, again, it's because if you needed to troubleshoot either a print setup or a print, instead of having to identify the 30 or 50 places in a solution where you're printing, you only have to go to one script now to go ahead and figure that out. So I've already created the script itself, which is just a print document. And now one of the things, obviously, because we have to tell it what to do, because we've got these options. So let's go ahead and we'll just add the steps here first. Like I said, typically I always go with a print setup as well as a print. Okay, and as we check in here, we can see here are our options. Okay, typically the only option here for page setup or print setup that I'm worried about is the orientation. Obviously, if you needed to worry about scale, you could come up with another parameter. That's where it goes back, where you're always constantly tweaking, seeing out, okay, what can I modify to make this even more dynamic and reusable. And then with the print setup, we've got a few more options, of course, where the primary one being, are we printing the records being browsed, or are we printing just our current record, right? So there's a lot there, and that, again, this is the one that I focus on, but obviously you could get into page ranges and things like that if you really wanted to. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here, and like I said, one of the first things we need to do, of course, is we need to take into account those different options, and the way we do that is by passing parameters. Now what we're going to do for the sake of this example is we're going to pass parameters in just a return separated list. And so let's go ahead and we'll assume we're getting that parameter, and then we're going to get those 2 values into separate variables once they land in our utility script here. So let's go ahead and we'll call this orientation. All right, and we're going to get the value of our get script. Get the first one. So now we're pulling that out. Go ahead and duplicate that, just so you don't have to watch me type all of that all over again. And then our second one is our scope. Again, these are the names that make sense to me, but of course you can rename your variables whatever makes sense to you. So now we've got our orientation and our scope. And so now we can just put in some if statements. All right. So we'll go ahead and say if. All right. So we'll get this one up here, go ahead and duplicate it, put my spacing back in there so I'll sleep better tonight. And now we can go ahead and just get in here, specify this, so that this is going to be, if the orientation is land, we're going to use that landscape setting, and then down here, we're going to use portrait. Okay, you'll notice there too of what I did is for this particular step, because we don't have to, we've already made the choice because we know how it needs to be printed, based on the layout that we're printing from, is that we're not going to give the user the option to go ahead and change that orientation. So we're going to go ahead and turn the dialog off there. Okay, now with that set, what we can do is then come down here and we just put in another if statement, and this here is if the scope let's see. So if the scope is our found set, we're going to do one thing, else we're going to do something else. And again, we'll go ahead and duplicate that. And this one here, I'm going to go ahead and leave the dialog on because the user is probably going to need to be able to select their printer. And so we've got the records being browsed, which is good for this one. And then down here, we're going to go ahead and specify the current record. All right, so that all looks good. And I'm just going to go ahead and go down here and just put in my exit step that I like to see. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save that. So now you've got the framework for our utility script, not necessarily completed, but we've got a framework in there. And so now let's go ahead and go back into the script that is doing the print. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and comment those out. So let's go ahead and call our script, which is that one there. And we're going to go ahead and add our parameter. And again, since this one here I know is portrait orientation, and also we want to print the found set like so. So that looks good. All right, so that's all that we need. So let's go ahead and save that. All right, so let's see what happens. And I'm going to run this without script debugger, so fingers crossed as we're doing a live demo here. Let's go ahead and click the button. Okay, so far it looks like it's good. We've got this coming up as expected. So if I go ahead and save it as a PDF. And even though you can't see it, I can see that it showed up on my other monitor here, so I know that that particular thing worked. Now if I come back in here, I want to show you something what happens. Now if I go ahead and hit cancel, this is probably not an area where we want to leave the user, right? Because we went ahead and canceled the print, but now this dialog comes up. It may leave the user someplace where we don't want them. And again, this is why having this utility script is helpful, because now instead of having to manage what happens if the user clicks cancel after every print step, because I only have one print step, I only have to manage this in one location. All right. So let's go ahead and make some changes. I'm going to go ahead and click continue and just get rid of that. All right, so let's get back into our script workspace here. And let's go ahead and make a couple of modifications. One of the things is just so that the user is able to cancel, we want to go ahead and allow user abort, and we want to leave that off. So we'll get that started at the top of the script here. Now when we come down here though, before we do the print, let's go ahead and set our error capture on. I know it's a common design that everybody turns on error capture at the beginning of the script, but I'm one of those, I only want to turn it on right before I'm ready to capture an error, just in case another error shows up in some place where I'm not expecting it. All right, so now we're looking for that error. And then we'll come down here, and I'm going to go ahead and set a variable. It's called print error. And get the last error here. And then I'm going to go ahead and set error capture. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Again, that's just the way I like to program, is I turn it on, capture the error that I'm expecting, and then turn it off, so that way if another error does come up, I'm still going to be able to see it. So we'll go ahead and hit save. All right, so now this time I'm going to go ahead and turn on Script Debugger here under Tools, just so that we can go ahead and step through it so you can see what's happening. Go ahead and click the button. Go ahead and step down through. So it's going to create a new window, get over there, find what we want. And then here's where it's calling our subscript. So it's running the correct print setup. And now we get to the print command to get all of our records being browsed. Okay, so now if I hit cancel, it's going to say, okay, the last error is user canceled action. And so now if I open up the data viewer here, you can see that it has captured, here's our two variables, and then here's the results. So we've got our print error of 1, which was the user had canceled the action. All right. So now what happens, of course, is that the user doesn't get the error, but we need to probably do something with that just in case whatever operation we're going to be doing needs to, maybe mark a record as being printed, or then it does some other operation after the print occurs. So there's a little bit more here that we need to do in our script. All right. So, and what is that? Well, we've captured the error here. Let me get rid of this window so you can see it well. So we've got our set variable here. So we're capturing that error, but now let's go ahead and do something with it so we can send a result back to the user. So if, and I'm going to go ahead and do this, I don't know how many of you do this, is that sometimes when you're doing a numerical comparison with a variable, your mileage can vary because it's technically text. So I've gotten in the habit of any time where I'm checking something, I always do a get as number to make sure that I'm looking at that. So if it's get as number, the error is 0, right? Else if, and let me go up here and copy and paste that so you don't have to watch me try to type it, because we know that this is a 1. And then we're just going to go ahead and one last one, because if it is truly an error, we want to make sure that that is reported back. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and set a variable here as a result, and I'm just going to give it an okay. Go ahead and duplicate that. Make that one canceled. And one more duplication here. And now this time the result is just going to be whatever the print error was. All right. So that looks good, and because I noticed an issue that's going to bug me if I don't take care of it here, just to fix that up. Okay. Now, since we're returning a result now, I'm just going to go ahead and throw this in so we can see what the result is. Worry about making it real pretty. Just go ahead and save that now. All right, so let's go ahead and go back and see what happens. All right, so it pulls up our preview, we get our print. Now if I click cancel, it's telling me that what the print result was. Okay, and so that is pretty much exactly what I expected to find. Let's go ahead and run through it with the debugger to make sure my eyes are not deceiving me. All right, so we go ahead and hit print. All right, it's just checking to see if that window is already open. Going down here, creating a new window, making sure we're looking at the right set of records. Let's go ahead and performing our script, getting our information. We're going to go ahead and cancel it once again. Oh. Yep, I thought something was amiss. I don't know if you saw what happened there, but I'm setting a script result, but then I forgot to include it to pass the result back to the script that called it. So if I go ahead and save that, and I'm going to go ahead and just flip this around just so that it's a little more natural, so we get the window closed before we get our result. All right, so there we go. And if I cancel it, our window closed, and it says the print result was canceled. So like I said, that's where you have a little bit more flexibility, because now when the result comes back to the script that called it, you can make sure that it's formatted the same way every time to handle the cancellation, but then the script that calls your utility script, you're able to make sure that you're handling everything properly, and everything continues on. So let's just do one more thing just to show what's going on here. And what that is that, oops, not need to adjust it on the layout, we need to adjust it in the script. We're going to change the parameter that we're passing. Now when I run the script again, so here we see we've switched to current record. Now obviously the user still has the option to change it, but because I have that dialog exposed, but now when I print, it says the result was okay. And if I come over here, there is the document. Let me open the document. But you guys get the idea. All right, so like I said, that's a very quick example, kind of digging into the weeds of kind of the thought process behind setting up your utility script. Now, of course, depending on the process, again, you're going to have more options, so you're going to be passing more variables, and that's typically at the point where I think we've talked about this before, where I've stopped using that return separated list of variables. Is to actually use a JSON object, because that gives you the ability to have name value pairs, so you never lose track of, okay, what value is this that I'm passing back and forth. So for the rest of our time together, I've got a few other examples, and we're just going to go ahead and dig into them rather than recreate them from scratch. I'm just going to go ahead and pull them up so you can see what they are. Obviously, they have a lot of comments in them. Because these are the utility scripts that I actually do use. Now this is one that is for, I'll go ahead and close those so you can see, but this is for the saving of a document using the save as PDF. Now obviously you still have your print setup that you want to use to make sure you've got your orientation for either landscape or portrait. So you're still considering that. But then, of course, there's a few more options with the save records as PDF. Obviously, there's a file name that you're probably going to want to pass based on whatever the context is of that record or record set that you're coming from. So you're able to pass that along. Obviously, as we dig in here with the options, you can see that one of the options is to append to an existing PDF, which again is something that you may need to do. And then of course then you've got some options again. Is it the record being browsed, or is it the current record? So that's where we've got a few more different things going on here. As you can see, the first one is if our scope is for the found set and we're appending, we run this save records as PDF. If we're just appending, okay, then we use this one, which would be a single record append. And then down here, if we're the found set, but we're creating a new document, we have a separate save records where we're not appending, of course. And then finally, so it's here we have 4 different options for save records as PDF with those different choices. But again, if someone reports a problem with save records as PDF, I'm able to just drop right in here and look at that one specific step based on the script that it's being called from. And then we do the same, error capture to be able to report a result back. Again, passing that as a JSON object just so that we're able to send some more information along with that. And what that does is you can see here, in these steps, I'm just kind of calling out, okay, this is what you can expect everything to look like. Where you've got, the file path, separately sending the file name, because that might be something you want to set in, in the name of the file, in one of the parameters. Of course, then you've got your orientation, you have your scope here, you have your mode, which is something that I decided to add because there may be times when I want the user to interact with a dialogue, so the mode lets me display an error message, but if I'm running it on a robot or as a server-side script or something, obviously you don't want a custom dialog to appear. So by setting the mode to auto, you can bypass all of those things. And then we have here the final parameter of appending. So we're getting this essentially 6 name value pairs in one parameter coming from the parent script. And then kind of doing the same thing, just a little bit smaller scale, but I'm actually able to calculate the error as a value, and typically I just am sending back the FileMaker error code. I found that that's the easiest thing to do. So I know if I see a 0 and save error, I know that the script ran successfully and I don't have to worry about anything else. But then I'm also able to go ahead and calculate a custom title, or a message that can then be thrown into a dialog box if I need to once I get back to that parent script. But again, because everything is happening here in my utility script, it makes things easier if I need to then change that message. I'm not looking for everywhere. I'm using save records as PDF. And so that's where we get down here where, again, if the mode is auto and if there was some type of error, it's able to put up the message right here, or I'm able to come down here and, as you can see, I've got some logic going on, setting my JSON object for my result and then passing that back to the parent script. So that is the save records as PDF. The other one that we had talked about, of course, is email. And this is an example where we're talking about 7 different name value pairs where we've got, again, our list of attachments, the email to, the email CC, any BCC, the actual message, how we're sending the email, and then the subject. Okay, and obviously this sending via is whether I'm sending it via SMTP or if I'm sending it through the user's mail client, and how we're handling any attachments. And so again, this is where we've got 4 different options. So first we're checking to see, is there a list of attachments, and if it's not empty, then I'm running this step if I'm running on client, or sending via SMTP server down here. And then just kind of repeat that for emails with non-attachments. The same kind of thing, but again, the to, the from, all of that stuff is then going to stay the same, and then just generate a result based on the email error that is returned. And kind of follow that same format where we've got an error, just the number, and then we get some detail about that error in case we need to use that in the parent script that is called our utility script. All right, so hopefully, we've just touched the surface. I know we kind of dug into just the one script there, but you kind of get the flavor of what is possible whenever you're looking for areas. Okay, what can I consolidate and reuse? And so now with those 3 scripts here, the print, the save, and the send email, I'm able to go ahead and just move those into another solution and just start using them as long as I've got my parameters formatted correctly, and then everything is ready to go. So let's see here if we have any questions. All right, here's a good question. It says, how do you get started? Well, Like I said, for me, it's pretty much about identifying, that process that I'm constantly writing a script for, and then I look at the options to determine how complex it needs to be, and then that's kind of my springboard, and then I just go from there. Like I said, I think the email one, the save document one, I know this is not, the very first version that I wrote, because probably I had started with the return separated values for parameters, and then have just continued to iterate on it as I've moved it from file to file. And yeah, I mean that's the key thing there, is just identify, okay, what am I having to do constantly, and can I write it in a way to make it portable or reusable. All right. Oh, here's a good question. So how do you add these utility scripts to a solution? This is my favorite answer in saying that it depends. Okay. So what I mean by that is that, as I see it, there's really three options. One of the things that we've done here at Cross is we've created I hesitate to call it a starter solution, because I know FileMaker has starter solutions that they have as well. But in our starter solution, it's very bare bones, but it actually includes some of these scripts that we're not having to worry about the context, because the context has been set in our the script that we're working from, and so we just go ahead and have all of those scripts just in this starter solution, as when we begin to build, they're already there. The other ways that you can do it is, of course, you can always copy and paste. Like if you have a file on your desktop that you need to add, you can just select all, copy that over to the solution that you need to add it to, and then of course you can also import. So here under the scripts menu, we have the option to import. So I can select, okay, here's the the file that we used last time, so I can open that up. I can look at the list of scripts where I want to import, and then I just select those, and then it just pulls those utility scripts in that are maybe in a solution that doesn't have them. I'm able to import them pretty quickly. The only thing there that I need to check is if I'm using any custom functions or something like that, is just to making sure that they're in place first before the script comes in, so I don't get any kind of error. But those are probably the three, and I think I've used all three of those methods, so it just kind of depends on the scenario, whether I'm inheriting a solution, whether I'm starting from scratch, or is it one script that I need to add, or do I need to add 10 of these utility scripts, or whatever. So just kind of use your judgment, whatever is easiest and best for you, of course. Here's a good one. What other utility scripts can be written? Well, really, I would say that is limited by your imagination. One of the things that I haven't done a whole lot with, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a new script here just so I can go ahead and pull these, is there's two script steps. If I can type here today. That's not what I wanted. It's perform script, and then okay. So set field by name is exactly that. Is that just like set field, you can calculate a result, but here you're able to specify the target field by a calculation. So that allows you to use a little bit more indirection, where you can set things based on the context you're in, so it allows your scripts to be more reusable. The same thing here with perform script. Let's see, here we go. You can either from a list or by name. And so when you get in there, you're able to specify a calculation for the script that you want to run. So those are some other things that allows you to make things more dynamic, where you can actually pass the name of a script that you want to execute as a parameter when you get to your utility script, or you can pass a parameter that is the field name for the value that you want to set based on the context that you're coming from. So that's where there's a couple steps in there that gives you a little bit more options. So again, it all comes down to your imagination, also your application, because what you're building may be very unique to you, but there's something that you're doing all the time. So that's a good opportunity to build one of these utility scripts. All right, let's see, do we have any other questions? Doesn't look like we do. So with that, let me just say we do have a few upcoming events. Just want to make mention of. That is first, the next meeting of FM Berg, which is the Pittsburgh FileMaker Developer Group, takes place on Wednesday, October 12th at 7 p.m. Due to a scheduling conflict, October's meeting will be held on the second Wednesday of the month instead of our regular first Wednesday. So please note that. This is a hybrid meeting, which means you have the option to attend in person or to join us remotely. For details and to RSVP, please visit www.crossit.com/fmberg. And then at noon on Wednesday, October 19th, we're going to serve our next Lunch and Learn. As we head into the fall season, we're still in the planning stages, so please stay tuned and we'll announce our next topic in a couple of weeks. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. If you like what you saw and heard, please click the thumbs up and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, we humbly ask that you do, and you can also hit the bell to get notified when a new video goes live. Just like today's installment, some of the content presented as part of our Lunch and Learn sessions are the results of your questions. So if you have a suggestion for a future topic, or if a specific FileMaker problem has you stumped, please submit those topics and questions by emailing us at nutshell@crossit.com. Your idea or question may be the featured topic of a future Lunch and Learn. From all of us at CrossIT, we are glad to have served you. Have a great day.